This is a presentation on naturalism in American literature. Naturalism is a literary movement that emerged in the late 19th century and carried into the early decades of the 20th century. Our discussion is based on three critics: Anton Pokrivčák in American Literature of the 20th Century, Modernism and After; Xiaofen Zhang's article on the influence of naturalism on American literature; and Arnold Weinstein's lectures in Classics of American Literature. Together, these critics help us understand what naturalism is, how it differs from realism, and why it mattered historically. They also emphasize the ways naturalism shaped the trajectory of American literature, preparing the ground for later movements such as modernism. By focusing on the critics' perspectives, we can frame naturalism as a philosophy of determinism, a literary style of stark realism, and a cultural response to its time. Our cover image is Winslow Homer's The Fog Warning, a painting of a lone fisherman struggling against the sea, a vivid visual metaphor for naturalism's theme of human beings at the mercy of larger forces. Xiaofen Zhang provides the clearest definition of naturalism. She describes it as an intensified form of realism, one that does not just describe ordinary life, but insists that life is shaped by forces beyond human control. Naturalist writers believed in determinism. Human beings are determined by heredity and environment. Free will is limited, and characters are often caught in circumstances they cannot escape. Zhang also points to the influence of Émile Zola, the French writer whose essays on literature framed naturalism as a scientific enterprise, where the novelist studies human life like a scientist studies experiments. In tone, naturalism is objective, even clinical, and often pessimistic. It presents human beings as subjects to larger forces, biological, social, or environmental, rather than masters of their own destiny. This definition sets naturalism apart from the broader realist movement and explains its darker, more fatalistic vision. Anton Pokrivčák situates naturalism within the broader history of American literature. He explains that naturalism grew out of realism, but pushed it in a new direction. While realism focused on ordinary life and believable characters, naturalism insisted on exposing the harshest aspects of life: poverty, violence, social struggle, and human weakness. Historically, the movement thrived in the decades around 1890 to 1910, a period marked by rapid urbanization, industrial growth, and new scientific theories such as Darwin's evolution. American writers absorbed European influences, particularly Zola's experimental method and Darwinian determinism, and translated them into American context. Pokrivčák emphasizes that naturalism was important not just as an endpoint of realism, but as a bridge toward modernism. Its focus on fragmentation, alienation, and the limits of meaning foreshadows many themes that would dominate modernist literature. Lewis Wickhine's Breaker Boys in a Pennsylvania Coal Mine starkly illustrates the industrial and social conditions Pokrivčák highlights: children forced into dangerous labor, showing how environment and economy determine lives. Zhang identifies the major features that define naturalist writing. Characters are usually placed in situations shaped by heredity and environment, and they struggle against forces that are too powerful to overcome. The results are often bleak. Stories end in failure, defeat, or disillusionment. Naturalists did not avoid unpleasant subjects. They focused on the poor, the marginalized, and those caught in desperate situations. Settings often include urban slums, factories, or harsh rural landscapes, all meant to highlight struggle and survival. Stylistically, naturalism is marked by an objective tone, often compared to journalist reporting or scientific observation. The emphasis is on detail, accuracy, and the stripping away of sentimentality. Zhang underscores that this objectivity can feel cold or pessimistic, but it was central to the movement's self-understanding as a kind of literary natural science. Jacob Riis' Tenement Yard, How the Other Half Lives, captures the crowded, harsh environments Zhang identifies as central to naturalism, settings where heredity and environment overpower individual will. Arnold Weinstein emphasizes how naturalism forces us to rethink human nature. In his lectures, he describes how naturalist literature shows the limits of human freedom. Characters are often reduced to instincts, the need to survive, the drive for food, shelter, or sexual desire. Literature becomes a lens for exposing human vulnerability, reminding us how small individuals can be in the face of larger systems. For Weinstein, this is not just pessimistic, it also gives us insight into how social, economic, and biological systems shape lives. Naturalism's coldness is a kind of honesty. It strips away illusions of heroism and shows people as they are, subject to forces beyond their control. In doing so, it broadens literature's scope, forcing readers to confront uncomfortable truths about society and human existence. Walker Evans' Sharecropper's Family, shown here, visually conveys Weinstein's point about vulnerability and survival, faces marked by poverty, lives shaped by larger economic and environmental forces. Both Zhang and Pokrivčák stress the social dimensions of naturalism. Writers often turn their attention to the margins of society, the working, poor, women struggling with limited opportunities, racial minorities, or those trapped by class structures. Naturalist literature highlights poverty, injustice, and the ways institutions constrain individuals. In this sense, it operates as social critique. Zhang shows how naturalists were influenced by contemporary science and sociology, seeing literature as a way to investigate social problems. Pokrivčák adds that this concern with society links naturalism to modernism, since later writers would continue exploring alienation and inequality, but in more fragmented and experimental forms. Naturalism thus stands at a crossroads. It is firmly rooted in late 19th century scientific determinism, but it also anticipates the socially engaged literature of the 20th century. Gordon Parks' American Gothic, shown here, embodies alienation and systemic injustice, echoing Zhang and Pokrivčák's arguments that naturalism exposes the violence of social structures. Weinstein frames naturalism as a vision that is often harsh and unsentimental. The stories can feel bleak, with characters unable to escape their circumstances. Yet Weinstein insists that this vision is valuable. Naturalism forces readers to confront realities they might prefer to ignore: poverty, violence, social inequities, and human weakness. In this way, naturalism is not a dead end, but a necessary stage in the evolution of literature. It expands what literature can represent, proving that art does not have to idealize life to be meaningful. By showing the full range of human existence, even its darkest sides, naturalism enlarges our understanding of what it means to be human. For Weinstein, this honesty, this refusal to turn away, is precisely what makes naturalism significant. Dorothy Lang's Migrant Mother, shown here, has become the iconic image of Depression-era hardship. The mother's lined face, her children clinging to her, and the stark setting all embody the bleak yet honest vision Weinstein describes in naturalism. Like naturalist literature, the photo strips away sentimentality, forcing us to confront vulnerability and endurance head-on. Taken together, Pokrivčák, Zhang, and Weinstein highlight the broader significance of naturalism. It was more than just a literary style. It was a worldview shaped by science, history, and culture. Naturalism stood as a crucial step between 19th century realism and 20th century modernism, showing how literature could move from simple representation to deep questioning of human freedom and meaning. It challenged cherished myths of American culture, such as the idea that anyone can succeed through hard work, by showing how forces like heredity, class, and environment often determine outcomes. Finally, Naturalism helped shape American literary identity by insisting that the stories of the poor, the marginalized, and the defeated deserved representation alongside those of the powerful. In this way, naturalism left a lasting mark on American literature and prepared the ground for the radical experiments of modernism. To conclude, naturalism was a movement that brought determinism, objectivity, and social critique into American literature. Zhang defines its features: determinism, heredity, environment, and pessimism. Pokrivčák situates it historically as a movement between realism and modernism tied to the upheavals of its time. Weinstein frames it as a vision, harsh but truthful, forcing us to face realities we might prefer to avoid. Together, these critics show that naturalism expanded literature's range, insisting that art represent not only the beautiful or the successful, but also the bleak and the marginalized. Its legacy is twofold: as a culmination of realism and as a precursor to modernism. By understanding naturalism through these critics, we see its continuing importance in American literary history.